Hi, I'm Maya, and today I want to match books to Taylor Swift albums based on vibes. So the way that I determined which album goes with which book is a combination of vibes and content and just overall atmosphere and feeling created in the story, but also created by reading the book or listening to the music, just the feelings and the imagery and the associations that I personally have with the book and the album. So you might not agree with all of them, but that's okay. So I'm just going to go in the order that the albums were released. So to start off, Taylor Swift's debut album, her self-titled album. Mine is very damaged, but don't worry about it. It's fine. And the book that I have to match to this album is Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DiCamillo. So the reason I put these two together is because they're both very country. Taylor Swift mentions Georgia and Tim McGraw on this album, and this book is set in Florida, so I just thought the settings were very similar and very fitting for each other. There's not really a love story in Because of Winn-Dixie, so that part doesn't really match this album. But one thing that I really like about this album is that in a lot of the songs, Taylor is exploring other people and their stories instead of just focusing on her own personal experiences. So, like Mary's song and Tied Together with a Smile are not about her, they're about people that she knows and their struggles and stories. And that's something that the main character in this book, Opal, experiences. She learns more about her neighbors and their stories. She learns more about Amanda and Gloria and Franny. And I think what both of these works do a good job of is building a sense of community and just connecting to a more simple and rural lifestyle. And I think the twang that Taylor uses in this album as she's singing really fits this book. Like, if you read the book in the accent that Taylor uses in this album, I think they go together really well. So both this book and this album make me want to drink a Fanta orange soda and go swimming and wear cut-off jean shorts and go for a scenic drive. Okay, so the next album is Fearless, and the book that I have for this is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. So it's not just this book that I've paired to this album, it's the whole series, the other two books in the series, P.S. I Still Love You and Always and Forever Lara Jean, also really fit with Fearless, with the vibe and the aesthetic. I think the song Hey Steven especially really fits with To All the Boys I've Loved Before because it really is just a love letter to a crush, and that's basically all that Lara Jean does in this book is write love letters to crushes. And the setting for both the album and the book is high school, and songs like 15 and Love Story and You Belong With Me really feel like they're drenched in that high school atmosphere. And that's definitely what To All the Boys I've Loved Before also feels like. Just like when you're in that stage of life where you're still figuring out who you are and what you want and the kind of person you want to be and the kind of people you want to be with. And it's exciting and fluttery and very butterfly-like. And dealing with having romantic feelings for the first time, the budding of a new relationship. Also, the song The Best Day on this album is about Taylor Swift's mom and her relationship with her. And Lara Jean's relationship with her mom is also very important. Her mom passed away when she was young, but she still keeps her with her and thinks about the things that she taught her. And the bond between mother and daughter is very strong in both of these works. These are the other two books in the series, and I just noticed that the song Forever and Always goes well with Always and Forever. And even like the album art goes really well with the Lara Jean series because the whole like tea party aesthetic and just floral, flowy dresses and sparkles and glitter and all that fun girly stuff. Lara Jean's really into all of that. I think the biggest connection between The album Fearless and the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series is being young but still having big emotions and big feelings that feel like they're too big for you and just feeling overwhelmed by them and trying to figure out how to handle them. And also learning how to tell people how you feel and what you think. I think both the album and the books are very good coming of age stories. They really make me want to just go eat a cake and put on a pink tutu and run around. Yeah, those are the vibes. Okay, the next album is Speak Now. This was my favorite Taylor Swift album for a really long time, and it might still be, but like honestly, it changes every day. So today it's not my favorite album, but it was my favorite album for a very long time. The book that I have to pair with this album is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This is my copy I had when I was young that I read over and over again, so it's very damaged and like falling apart. I also like how both of these are purple. Anyway, I saw a lot of connections and parallels between this album and this book. The song Back to December made me think of Lori and Joe and how Joe broke Lori's heart. The song Mean made me think of Amy and her horrible teacher who hit her and told her that women weren't worth educating. Enchanted made me think of Joe and Professor Bear and their sweet love story. And the song Never Grow Up makes me think of all four of the sisters and how they want to cling to their childhood, but they have to grow up. Like I was saying about The Best Day on the Fearless album and the connection to the Jenny Han books, I think similarly the song Never Grow Up and the song Long Live also tap into that relationship with family and friends. And that's obviously what Little Women is also about, family and friends and deepening and strengthening those relationships and those bonds. There are sad chapters and there are sad songs. There are happy chapters and there are happy songs. There are angry chapters and there are angry songs. I think this album and this book both cover the full spectrum of human emotion. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by how pretty the album art is. I used to pore over this all the time, just rereading her little prologue. I think songs like Mine and Sparks Fly and Speak Now and Enchanted really encompass love, and I think they're good representations of the romantic relationships in this book. I think also the theme in the album of learning to speak up is something that all of the March sisters have to learn how to do. So this book and this album both make me want to finger paint and drink hot cocoa and cuddle with a cat. Okay, the next album is Red, and the book that I have to go with this album is Twilight. So, like I did with the Lara Jean books, I'm pairing the whole series of Twilight with the album Red. Not only do the covers look nice together, but I also feel like I associate Twilight, the series, with the season Autumn. And Red, obviously, as Taylor has said multiple times, is an album about the fall. And I think the relationship that Bella and Edward have is very much a Red relationship. It's passionate and fiery and probably not good for them, gets both of them into trouble and danger, but is also exhilarating and exciting. I mean, like, just the titles of the songs sound like Bella and Edward. Like, I knew you were trouble. We're never ever getting back together. That's what Edward thinks, but Bella knows better. Sad, beautiful, tragic. I think those three adjectives perfectly describe the Twilight series. Everything has changed. Bella's entire world changed when she realized that Edward was a vampire. I think also Bella's relationship with Jacob could also be applied to this. Their dumb kiss scene that I hate so much. My neighbors are stomping around upstairs. Don't worry about it. What was I saying? Jacob. Hate that guy. I'm definitely Team Edward. Anyway, he's just bad for her. He's just toxic. He's very controlling. Jacob, not Edward. But it's hard for Bella to tear herself away from him because she's so connected to him. There's also like religious imagery in this album with State of Grace and Holy Ground. And religious imagery also comes into play in the Twilight books. Edward is always talking about his soul and how he's damned and how he doesn't want to affect Bella's soul. The album art has a lot of greenery, which reminds me of Forks. And the song Starlight, I'm gonna drop the books. The song Starlight really goes well with the titles of these books, you know, Eclipse, New Moon, Breaking Dawn. So like that celestial imagery, lights in the sky, the power that comes from them, the romanticism and mysticism around them. Also, the bonus tracks on Red go really well with Twilight and New Moon when Edward leaves her. The scene in the movie when she's sitting in that chair and like all the seasons are passing and it's spinning around. That makes me think of Come Back Be Here. And the last song on the album is Begin Again, which makes it a nice circle. Taylor loves doing that. She loves bringing things full circle. And that's something that happens in these books as well. We come back to where we started, especially with the big twist at the end with Alice seeing the future and the big battle. This is really heavy. Bella and Edward really do have to begin again. Bella has to start her whole life over. Now that she's a vampire, she has to adjust to that. And so there is some sadness in leaving behind her old life, but mostly it's just excitement for the future and peace and contentment with being with the love of her life. Okay, so these make me want to curl up with apple cider and step on crunchy fall leaves and go stargazing while wearing a nice fuzzy warm sweater. Next we have 1989. This one was really hard for me to find a book to match with because I think this album definitely feels like it should be paired with a contemporary novel. And I don't really read a lot of contemporaries. I mostly read classics or period pieces or fantasy. So it was really hard to find one, but I finally decided on Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. One of the big reasons why I chose this one is because this book is set in the 80s. I just hit myself. And obviously this album is named after the 80s. What am I talking about? I think that both of these really capture that celebrity lifestyle that you see in the tabloids, even though they are set on two different sides of the country. 1989 is set in New York. It's about loving New York, while Malibu Rising is set in Malibu and is more about that California lifestyle. But even though they're on opposite coasts, they still have the same vibe. The glittery, flashy, famous people spending a lot of money, throwing big parties. That's in both of these. So the parents in this book, Mick and June, I think their relationship is the one that I see a lot of parallels with the songs on this album. Not so much the other romantic relationships in this book. But like style really makes me think of June and Mick and how June got caught up in Mick's glamorous lifestyle, how he was impressing her with his fashion and his talent, and also how smitten he was with June's appearance. I think also, like, All You Had to Do Was Stay and I Wish You Would, like songs about wishing that people would step up and do what they're supposed to and come back and be there for you. I think that's exactly what June is feeling in this book towards Mick. That frustration, that longing, that wishing. So this album came with a collection of Polaroids, and I think the Polaroids also match the aesthetic of Malibu Rising because one of the characters, Hud, is a photographer and he takes some photos that turn out to be really important in the book. So photography plays a large role in the book, and it's also a fun addition to the album 1989. But yeah, just like the neon, the fuzzy sepia tones, the blurry, hazy, dreamy atmosphere of 1989 is also found in Malibu Rising. Because it is a book about memory, about looking back on the past, and it jumps between the 50s and the 80s. The song I Know Places makes me think of Nina in Malibu Rising, who just wants to be somewhere quiet and peaceful because she's a famous celebrity, she's a famous model, a famous surfer, and she just wants to have a place where people can't find her. And that's what this song is about. I know places. I know places we can hide. I know places we won't be found, and they'll be chasing their tails trying to track us down. They got the cages, they've got the boxes, they are the hunters, we are the foxes. So Nina in Malibu Rising definitely feels like she's being pursued by the public, and she just wants to run, like the song I Know Places. The song Clean makes me think of June, which is very sad. The song is sad, and June is a sad character. And there are definitely parallels there between getting over someone, getting someone out of your system, and also substance abuse. Also, the song How You Get the Girl, the idea that there is a formula to wooing a woman and convincing her to be in a relationship with you. That's something that a lot of the male characters in Malibu Rising think they can do. They think they found that magic formula. And a lot of the times it does work. And the song Bad Blood makes me think of the brothers Hud and Jay in this book. There is some bad blood between them, some rivalry, some conflict. So these make me want to get dressed up fancy and go out for a night on the town in a big city with a lot of blinding lights and drive around in the city with the windows down and feel the chilly city air on my face while my hair blows as if I have a wind machine that's like perfectly blowing it so it's not getting tangled or messed up. The next album is Reputation, and the book I have to match with it is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. So the first thing that made me decide I wanted to pair these two together was the snake, because as we all know, the snake is Taylor's image for Reputation, because she was reclaiming the word snake that had been used negatively against her, and she used it to brand herself, and she created a new meaning for the term snake. So instead of being sad or offended or letting that word beat her, she embraced it and made it her own. I think the color palette of black, white, and gray goes really well with Ninth House because the main character can see ghosts, and those ghosts are called grays. So Ninth House just has a really dark, misty, gritty feel to it that goes well with Reputation. So this book is about the secret societies at Yale. Leigh puts a fantasy spin on it. These societies that do exist in real life, in the story, they use magic to accomplish their goals and to bring them success. But yeah, so there's a lot of secrecy and lies and dishonesty surrounding these societies. And those are themes that are explored in Reputation. Rumors being spread, falsehoods being presented as if they're fact. Look what you made me do, and this is why we can't have nice things. Both examine enemies, and there are a lot of enemies and bad people in this book. Some of them take physical form, but some of them are the inner demons that the main character Alex is dealing with. Reputation is definitely Taylor's darkest album in terms of branding, but also in terms of lyrics and themes. This book is extremely dark. It gets very sinister and scary. But at the same time, there are moments of humor and light that help balance it out. I just want to read it again right now. It's so good. Such unique characters and a unique idea. And I think Reputation for Taylor is a very unique album compared to the rest of her work. It really stands out. I think songs like I Did Something Bad and Don't Blame Me have obvious connections to Ninth House, but I like the more subtle connections. I like the more gentle songs like Delicate and Call It What You Want, because I think those songs really embody the softer side of Alex and the more tender feelings she has toward her mother and her friends in the past and her new friends that she's making now. I like when there are soft, quiet moments for Alex because she's been through so much trauma and just horrific experiences. I also think the endings to both the album and the book are very similar. The album ends with New Year's Day, which is very gentle and hopeful. And this ending is a cliffhanger. It's setting up for another book, but there is a sense not of complete peace because there are things that need to happen and get sorted, but there is hope that things will get better and that problems will be solved. So this album and this book make me want to put on black eyeliner and wear a bunch of silver jewelry and go exploring in the sewers. The next album I have is Lover, and I don't have like the CD cover because it didn't come with one. I got this in one of the journals that she had. I think she has like 4 different journals. I forget which one I got, but yeah, this just came with the journal, so I don't have a CD cover for it, but that's okay. So the book that I have to go with Lover is Again But Better by Christine Riccio. So first of all, I think the setting is what really connects these two works. Again But Better is about a girl named Shane who goes on a study abroad to London, and obviously there are a lot of songs in Lover that reference London, like London Boy and Cornelia Street. I think also the color palette, the pinks and blues of both the book and the album match. So in this book, Shane falls in love with a boy named Pilot, and their love story is really cute, and I think that it really matches up well with songs like I Think He Knows and Paper Rings. But there are also sad moments when Shane messes up and makes mistakes, and I think those reflect the sadder songs on Lover, like Cornelia Street. I think both the album and the book are about going on adventures and seeing the world and meeting new people and finding that person that you are meant to be with. Also, there are a lot of Taylor Swift references in this book. The author is a big fan of Taylor Swift, and she quotes a lot of her lyrics in this book. One thing that's really nice about this book is that the ending doesn't just end with the couple getting together, which happens with a lot of romances. We get to see more of what happens after they're together, and I feel like that's what happens in Lover. We get to explore Taylor's relationship with this man that she has decided is the one. And another thing that both of them do is presenting the idea that you can associate a person with a city. And like in Cornelia Street, she's mystified by how a city can scream a person's name. And in the book, Shane looks around at all of the places she's been to and the experiences she's had in those places with Pilot. Everywhere she looks, she sees Pilot. So both of these, the novel and the album, make me want to ride the London Eye and chew bubblegum. And eat cotton candy, even though I don't like cotton candy. But just like, maybe I wouldn't eat it, but I would just hold it for the aesthetic. And listen to cheesy love songs. Okay, the next album I have is Folklore. I got the In the Weeds edition of the cover because I thought she looked really cool in the field. And the book that I have to go with this album is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. So the first thing that made me connect Hamnet to Folklore was the title Folklore, because this book is about the son of Shakespeare. And there is so much folklore surrounding Shakespeare and his life with Anne Hathaway. And I think this book does a really good job of bringing that folklore to life and embracing the reputation of Shakespeare. So this book has a lot of really tragic, sad, heartbreaking moments, and that pairs well with the sad songs on Folklore like My Tears Ricochet, This Is Me Trying, Epiphany. The book and the album both have a kind of slow, sleepy, steady build. There's also infidelity in this book, and that goes well with the song Illicit Affairs on this album. And also the love triangle between Betty, James, and Inez, and all of their songs. In the prologue of Folklore, Taylor says, "Picking up a pen was my way of escaping into fantasy, history, and memory." And those 3 words, fantasy, history, memory, are just the perfect way to describe this book. I think the song Mad Woman is like a theme song for Agnes in this book. People criticize her and give her a hard time because they don't understand her. And Taylor said that this was a song about female rage. And I think Agnes does have rage. She's basically an apothecary and a medicine woman, but people think of her as a witch and she's an outsider. When really she should be celebrated for her talents and the way that she helps people in her town. In this book, we jump between different characters and their thoughts and their actions. And that's also something that we do in Folklore. We jump between the perspectives of the characters that Taylor has created. We see things from every point of view in the love triangle that I mentioned before. So today, Folklore is my favorite Taylor Swift album. That'll probably change tomorrow, but today I'm really loving Folklore. And I think the whole foggy, fields and forests and moss and lichen and old clothes, old houses, old memories. That imagery perfectly encompasses Hamnet.
Okay, I'm editing right now, and I realized that I forgot to do a vibe check for Folklore and Hamnet. So I just wanted to say that reading this book and listening to this album make me want to move to the English countryside and grow an herb garden.
And we have reached the final album that Taylor Swift has released, and that is Evermore. And the book that I have to go with this album is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. So it took me a really long time to find a book that I thought went well with Evermore, because to me it doesn't have a very cohesive feel, which isn't a problem. But I feel like there's just a lot going on, a lot of different stories intertwined, and they all kind of go in a different direction and have a different feel to them. So I was trying to find a book that didn't have one set feeling to it and that incorporated a lot of different feelings. And so I finally decided on Starless Sea. This book is basically a fever dream. It's just a trip. So much is going on. There are owls and bees and mystical parties and a crazy library. It's very mystical and at times unsettling and most of the time just baffling, but always entertaining and always intriguing and enthralling. So yeah, both the album and the book are kind of all over the place in terms of characters and subject and story. You have more like mystic fairy tale vibes like Willow and Ivy, but then you have more contemporary vibes like Coney Island. Then you also have Christmas vibes with 'Tis the Damn Season, and more of that like historical retro feel with songs like Dorothea and Marjorie. And you also have a song like Long Story Short, which has that more pop feel to it. It's more peppy and upbeat. But then you also have a song on this album like Evermore with Bonnie Vay, and it just feels very slow and more indie sounding. And that's what happens in Starless Sea. Like you start out with Zachary as a college student, and then somehow you wind up hearing about this girl who wears like a rabbit mask, and there's like a river of honey and there's like a gondola going through it or something. I'm not remembering all of the details, but it's like you start off in one place and all of a sudden you're somewhere else, and all of a sudden you're somewhere else. And that's definitely what it feels like to listen to Evermore. The passage of time is also really important in both Evermore and The Starless Sea. The song Right Where You Left Me gives us the image of a girl sitting at a table at a restaurant forever. It's the scene of where she was dumped, where she was broken up with, and she just never leaves, and dust collects in her pinned up hair. And that imagery is also in The Starless Sea. There are characters who go through these doors in order to visit each other because they're from different dimensions, different worlds, but time passes differently. And so, like, they miss seeing each other, and dust collects on things. Dust collects on their relationship because time is passing and they're not there at the right time. This book is very existential and very surreal. Reading it feels like looking at a Dali painting. And I think that the whiplash you feel when you listen to Evermore also has that kind of surrealist feeling to it. There's also murder on this album with the song No Body, No Crime, and death plays a big role in The Starless Sea. There are some violent moments. My favorite song on the album is Champagne Problems, and I think the aesthetic of champagne and a party and wanting to share good news but then having it turn and sour and not be the way that you had hoped it would be, that is also in The Starless Sea. Not those exact circumstances, but the feelings associated with that, the disappointment coming after being on a high of excitement. And there's also a really cool party in this book that I would love to go to, book themed. The party aspect of this album is also echoed in this book. In that same vein with Champagne Problems of expecting one thing but getting another, the song Happiness does that, where you hear that title and you think it's going to be a happy song, but it's not. It's very sad. And there are also moments in this book that you think are going to be beautiful and happy, but then they turn dark. So both of these works have a rambling, wandering, wonderful feel to them. They make me want to sit down next to a fireplace in an ivy-covered cottage and write poetry. Okay, so that's everything. Those are all of Taylor's albums, and those are the books that I paired with them. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope you enjoyed watching.